Good morning, everyone. We are coming to you live via Facebook streaming, via YouTube streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming that takes place every Saturday and Sunday between 6 to 7 in the morning Eastern Time. In America, time is divided into 3 zones: Eastern Time, Pacific Time, and Central Time. Then each country has its own time zone. In Trinidad, we follow the Eastern Time zone. At the moment in India, it is 3:30 in the afternoon, Sunday. England follows the Greenwich Mean Time. Europe will be midday, around 12 o'clock. The series on Heart Sutra, Prajnaparamita Hridayam Sutra, has come to an end at the moment. The spiritual development is like a spiral staircase. Your elevation changes, but you come back to the same spot. If you mark a spot on the ground level, you will come back to the same spot again and again. Choose a particular way of your looking into life on something. You will see as your intelligence increases, you get a different perspective of that particular thinking. So at the moment, it is the process of awakening Kundalini. Kundalini awakening process. Kundalini is surging of the energy, movement of the energy from its base center where it is stored to where it's supposed to reach. It is a natural process. It happens on its own when there is no obstruction. Means the moment an individual is innocent, the movement happens naturally and you would not know either. It is like a hose which has no bend or kinks or leakage. The water flows with a gush without any obstruction. When there is somewhere the hose bent or cracked or something, there will be a leakage. There are 2 processes if you have to work on it, which every individual need to work. One is intense breathing. The other is asking the question, who am I? Both are 2 different processes. Breathing strikes your center where the energy is stored physiologically. And when you use the other process, asking the question, who am I? This was the way of Raman Maharishi. Who am I? You cannot ask this question through the body, it is through the mind. So it is psychological. The question hammers the Kundalini energy with mind energy, and deep breathing hammers it with body energy. You can use either of the two techniques to awaken, to allow the movement, allow the movement of this energy. The energy that is there in you needs to be channeled. What is the use of having electricity from the national grid outside in the electric meter or the panel board if it is not available inside the house? Once you have installed the electricity service, you are supposed to pay for it, whether you are using it or not. Basic charges has to be paid. So you wire your entire house according to the requirements and then allow the electrical energy to move throughout the house where illumination is needed, where air conditioning is needed, and so on and so forth. In the same way, when you are born, this energy is given to you. When you wants to install the water supply in a particular building, the water supply company comes and establishes a connection between the national supply line and your compound. That is all they do. They put a meter for measurement of the use of the water. The rest, how you channel this water on your compound, depends on you, depends on your requirement. In the same way, at the birth, this energy is given to you at different places. When it manifests, it expresses itself through different places. It is known by a different name. Just as the water supply in your house, in different places, it is termed by different names. The toilet tap, the washroom tap, the kitchen tap, the garden tap, and the taps that you use for different places are different. It passes through the psychocenters. When the psychocenters are connected to one another, there is no obstruction. The energy flows without any restriction. When there is a breakdown, there is a leakage, there is blocks, And that we need to correct. When you start doing the deep breathing, whether it is Kapalbhati, means you are hammering your solar plexus. This is the most important technique to activate, to soften, to allow the solar plexus to get activated. You remember when you were conceived, a bond was established between you and your mother that is known as umbilical cord. It was through the umbilical cord that you and your mother were connected to one another. The umbilical cord connects your solar plexus or the belly button to that of the mother, and through this, during the period of 9 months, you were continuously nourished and nurtured by the energy of the mother. When the child is born, this connection is severed, the umbilical cord is removed, because now the child will not be in the womb and it is no more needed. You have to nourish and nurture on your own. As an infant, someone else takes care of you. But sooner or later, you have to develop your own capabilities to nourish and nurture yourself. In the beginning, the mother feeds you, nourishes you, takes care of you, does everything for you. But slowly and slowly, you have to become more and more independent. Now, in that process, you get connected through the cosmic energy. And in that, you are connected. This you have to do on your own. Breathing bridges you, first activates the energy, it hammers, it allows the movement. And when it begins to surge, it acts as a bridge between your body needs and connects it to the cosmic source. Through the breathing, you are bringing the Alan Vitae, the life force, into your body. And it is this that nourishes and nurtures your being. Body is nourished and nurtured through food, but more than that, it nourishes and nurtures with the life force, the air that comes into the system, pranavayu, the life force. Normally, an individual can fast for 12 hours. This is natural, nobody, no strain. But when you fast beyond the 12 hours, you are subsisting on the life force, the breath that comes into you. One should start practice. And if you go beyond 12 hours up to 17, your body is nourished and nurtured so much that you will eat less. Mother from Sri Aurobindo Ashram, the French lady, someone asked her about food and energy. She said, "Do you think the energy that I have?" The question was, "Mother, we have not seen you resting whole day. You are doing something or the other, responding to the seekers." And so she said, "Do you think the energy that I have comes from the frugal meals that I eat?" As the meditative and meditation is intensified, you will find your appetite gets less. The food brings the energy. When you eat food, and if your food is nourishing, nutritious, your need for food will be less as compared to if you take a pack of French fries and a large Coke. You will get hungry because these are empty calories. As compared to that, when your food is nutritionally intense, means you are not eating empty calories. Potato is replaced with addos and sweet potato. These bring the energy as time released. Then you do not need much food, because the energy that food brings, it is coming from the life force or the Ellen White or the Pranavayu. So these are the two techniques to awaken the energy that is you are born with, Kundalini, using the intense deep breathing, using the Kapalbhati. It is the way of deep breathing which is easy and anyone can do it. Sometimes those who are sincere, you just point out to them and they do it without any problem. So there are two ways. Breathing works at the level of the body, and asking the question, "Who am I?" works at the level of the mind. And if both the hammer strokes are strong enough, ordinarily these are the two ways of hammering the center, one through the breathing and the other through asking the question. There are other ways and means as well, but they are somewhat more complicated, and I will avoid for the moment because it is a general explanation. These are the two easiest methods which one can do without any instructions. These are the two processes to activate the dormant energy in an individual. One is the technique of breathing, the other is asking the question, "Who am I?" There is a subtle relationship between the two processes. In fact, the breath that connects the soul with the body, breath forms the bridge between the two. That is why when breath ceases, life ceases as well. Life goes on even if the brain is damaged. One can survive without the brain, or even if one's eye or any other bodily limb is amputated, one can live. But if breath stops, life comes to an end immediately. Breathing really bridges the body and the being, and it is at the junction of the soul and the body, at their meeting point, where the Kundalini, the energy resides. Kundalini, or whatever name you want to give it, it is the same energy. It resides at the center, at the junction of the body and the soul. Therefore, this energy has two forms. When this energy flows towards the body, the downward movement, then it is known as sex. When it flows towards the soul or the upward movement, then it becomes Kundalini or whatsoever you call it. And this energy is descends or descendant when it moves towards the body. It creates new life. And when its ascension begins, moving towards the soul, then it creates you. So while Kundalini is the ascending energy moving upward, and sex is the descending energy, but the seat of Kundalini, the place of its location, is hammered and begins to move by deep and fast breathing. Normally when you ask someone, he says that I cannot stomach any more things. So all these things are stored in the solar plexus. The center, which is in the middle of the body. The two centers below, the earth center and the water center. You will be surprised to know you cannot keep your breath tranquil even when you are making love. Love making brings about an immediate change in the movement of breath. No sooner one gets sexually excited, breathing is stepped up and it becomes chaotic. Because unless breathing hits the center, the energy cannot get activated. It will not start moving. And the sexual intercourse will not be possible. The same way, samadhi or ecstasy is impossible unless this energy is hit and stimulated by breathing. Samadhi is the highest point of when the energy begins to move upward, and sex is the lowest point when the energy begins to descend towards the body. But the breathing works equally in both directions. It is through the movement of the breath your physical interaction begins, and when the energy begins to move through the breathing technique, then something else. Try it. If your mind is full of sex, allow your breath to relax. Slow down its pace or if the mind is in a grip of anger or any lustful desire, slow down the pace of your breath, relax it, and you will find sex to be impossible. Anger or whatsoever it is has left you. It will be impossible for you to get angry if the breathing slows down. They simply cannot last because the energy that sustains them comes through breathing. And if during the process of love making, slowly and slowly your breathing gets relaxed and it is no more chaotic, you will find you experience something, and one day it will help you to transcend beyond the boundaries of sex. Therefore, no one can be angry if he can keep his breathing slow. Through the process of meditation, your breathing slows down. There is a particular meditation which I do. Chaotic breathing is so many breaths that you take, inhale and exhale during 1 minute. If you can start the practice, inhaling in 10 seconds, taking 10 seconds to inhale and 10 seconds to exhale, that makes it 20 seconds. That means in a minute there will be 3 breaths. Then through practice you can change it to 15 seconds inhaling and 15 seconds exhaling. You can keep a stopwatch in front of you and practice. That means 30 seconds for one complete breath movement, inhaling and exhaling. And after that, 30 seconds for inhaling and 30 seconds for exhaling. The moment you can breathe only one full cycle in a minute, inhaling and exhaling, you develop tremendous energy that you do not need even food. Body is nourished by the cosmic energy. That time you develop tremendous energy in you. There is no lethargy in you. Highly activated. You can, if you want to use this technique, you can practice. Start with a 10-second inhaling and 10-second exhaling to make it 20 seconds, 3 breaths per minute. You will find you will be so relaxed. The mind will be tranquil. The body will be relaxed. If you look at me while I'm talking to you through this live streaming, body is a stone-like. There is no movement. There is no itching, there is nothing there. Only thing is this, the head will move as I am talking to you. There may be a slight movement of the eyes, but neither the shoulders are shrugging. Nothing of that sort happens. Through this practice, your breathing slows down and gets relaxed. In that state, you cannot be sexually excited. Desire for sex disappears with the slowing down of the breath. So slow down and relax your breathing when mind is full of sex or anger or any other desire. And when your mind is seized with thirst, the longing for meditation, then accelerate the pace of your breathing and hammer the Kundalini with deep breathing. Kapalbhati is one of the technique, because with this longing within, the breathing, the hammering of breath, the energy is firmly set on the journey of meditation. Deep breathing has a profound effect on Kundalini. Pranayam, the science of yogic breathing, was not discovered unnecessarily. Through long experiments and investigations and through enduring experiences, it was known that a great deal can be accomplished with the help of breathing. And it's hammering on the Kundalini. Really, a lot can be done through deep and fast breathing. And the more intense and strong the hammering is, the swifter will be the movement of energy. And so far as we ordinary people are concerned, whose Kundalini is asleep for countless lives, the need for intense breathing and hard hammering with all the strength is far more greater. Breathing hits the Kundalini, the base center of energy, and as your experience will deepen, you will clearly see even with closed eyes the exact spot where it is hit by breathing. So it often happens that with the hammering through deep breathing, one gets sexually aroused. It so happens because your body was acquainted only with this experience, the experience of sex being aroused through deep breathing. So as a matter of habit, the body begins to move in the familiar direction, the direction of sex. Whenever you breathe deep, and fast. And that is the reason many seekers, both men and women, get the feeling that deep breathing activates the sex centers immediately. This is the normal way that you have understood the movement of the breath. Water begins to move downward. It flows downward. Anything that was ice, first it has to melt, and with a little bit of heat, the room temperature, it begins to move. It creates a chaos. When it flows, moves on the floor, it wets the entire floor because it is moving in a downward movement. But when the same ice is put systematically in a pot, its downward movement is restricted. There is no opening for it to move downwards. Now you are in a process of allowing it to form a steam and disappear in the unknown oblivion, into the cosmos. The steam moves upward, the liquid water fluid moves downward. When your energy first and foremost thing is the energy that was ice-like, frozen. Kundalini energy is frozen in you as you are. Sometimes through the movement of when you are sexually aroused, it gets somewhat activated, fluid-like, and immediately as it is natural, it begins to flow downwards towards the body. You feel sexually aroused. When through a slightest effort, you place it on the stove with the heat under it, there is no more downward movement, and it begins to form the steam, and steam begins to disappear. You don't see it. It is the steam. When during the summer months, the water from the surface of the ocean and the river evaporates, it forms the rain cloud and then showers on you with the purest form of raindrops. When this Kundalini energy begins to surge upward, and when it is through the process of yoga, through the process of your austerity, it forms this steam. It showers on you as bliss, as ecstasy. This bliss or the ecstasy or the happiness that you get when there is a downward movement of energy through the 6 centers, there is just a release, a temporary joy that does not last for long. But the joy, the bliss, surur or ecstasy that comes to you when the energy begins to move upward and it begins to evaporate. It forms the rain clouds and then showers on you. That bliss or the ecstasy is immeasurable. Quite a number of people, whenever they come in the company of someone in whom the energy is activated, flowing naturally, as soon as you come in the company of that person, the sex center begins to get activated. quite a number of people had similar experiences in presence of George Gurdjieff, and it was just natural. Many women thought as soon as they went up to him, their sex centers were hit and got stimulated. This was only natural, but because Gurdjieff was much misunderstood, and that is what happens when the gurus and the masters are misunderstood and they do not utilize this opportunity wisely. They are immediately swayed, then it creates a problem. That was natural, and because of that, Gurdjieff was much misunderstood and malignant. Although he was not at all at fault, it was natural for him. The fact is that the wives around such a person who is more alive than ordinary living one, whose Kundalini is awakened, are such that they begin to affect your Kundalini as soon as you go near him. And the first effect that an ordinary person will feel, a downward movement of the energy, and the downward movement of the energy is towards the body. Sex center gets activated. The wives of the awakened one, his presence is not that he is doing anything. He has not touched you. Just the very presence hits your sex centers. And that is how it happens, the first contact. Deep and fast breathing is bound to have a profound effect on the Kundalini. Using the Kapalbhati is one of the most effective and easy technique. You are breathing fast and hammering your solar plexus. How long will it take? It depends on the intensity and how frozen is your energy. Deep and fast breathing is bound to have profound effect on Kundalini and all the psychos centers, which you call chakras. Different the religious systems call them by different names. These are the centers through which the energy passes. Ordinarily, there are a number of such centers, and there are different estimates of them. But broadly speaking, there are 7 important centers. It all depends upon how is your garden hose, how many places it has leaks. These places are the leaks where the energy begins to channel into the other directions. There are 7 most important centers where Kundalini, while moving up and down, is likely to hold and rest for a while. If there is no leakage, it will continue to activate that center and then move forward. Just as the train stops at a particular station, drops certain passengers, takes the new passengers and continues its journey. It will release certain things and then it will continue its final journey, and it will have effect when it comes in and it will have its effect when it comes in contact with that center. And its first effect will be felt on the center which is most active in you. For instance, if a person is constantly working with brain, then with deep breathing, the head will become very heavy. It will be so because this brain center happens to be the most active center in that person. The first impact of breathing will be felt on head, his active center, and it will become heavy. If a person is sexual, then the sex center will be stimulated in the first instant. Similarly, a loving man will find his love as stimulated, enhanced, flowing. He will feel more emotional. His emotions will be heightened. So the most active center will be hit and stimulated first through deep breathing. You will have to remember these. But very soon it will begin to affect the other centers as well. And accordingly a change, a transformation into the individuality of the person begins. You will begin to know that a change is taking place in you. You are not the same person that you used to be up to now. Those who are doing Kundalini, those who are doing the Kapalbhati meditation, Kapalbhati technique, they will know they are not the same person as they used to be before doing it. We do not know that there are many possibilities within each one of us. We are familiar with only that center of us which is active and dominant in us, and where it exists. So when another center opens up, it seems that our old personality is gone and new man is born in its place. Or it seems we are now not the same person as we were before, because the most dominant center gets activated first. Then the surplus energy begins to move to the other centers. You have finished cooking something, a soup. You are dishing out. You put it in one container. When it is full, you use another container. But in the process of the activation of Kundalini energy, each center gets filled on its own. Or it seems with this movement that you are not the same person what you were before. It is like this. I am aware of only one room in the house where I live. And I carry the imprint of this room in my mind. And suddenly one day a door opens and another room appears before me. Then what happens? Your whole mental map of the house will undergo a change. Oh, this house has another room. I never knew that it has another restroom, because you were confined to one room alone. Now the house that I had thought to be mine will be looking a different house, and I will need to arrange it anew. Oh, so this room is also mine? I never knew it before. Now you have to plan to decor this room as well. This is how it happens. So as the various centers will be hit, activated, new dimensions of your life will begin to unfold and manifest themselves. And when all the centers will be active together, that is when the energy will flow towards them, all uniformly. Then for the first time, you will live a whole life. You will live totally just as an awakened one lives. Ordinarily, one lives not wholly, not totally. Only an awakened one really lives totally. And as such, we all live fragmentary life. All our upper centers remain untouched. You have never used, never gotten that opportunity. It is like a house. You are alone, living in the house. So you find it is too much of a work to open all the rooms, because you have to clean, you have to remove the cobweb, you have to keep it in neat and tidy. Every morning before I get up, before I come to this live streaming, I do my exercises about an hour, then clean 1, 2, 3. These are the rooms that I occupy. One is the living room, the other is bedroom, the third is a studio. All that has to be according to my convenience. Then the other room, the bedroom, is occupied by someone else. Then the other part, which is occupied by others, it is their responsibility to keep it clean. I keep the places where I visit, where I spend my time in different ways. The kitchen and the living room is together. That's where I spend my time. I spend time in my bedroom. I spend time in my studio. These I have to get activated, cleaned in a way that it appeals to me, the decor, the convenience. And then before coming, I water all the plants. It takes about 15 minutes to water the plants. Then put the feed for the birds. They are innocent. So ordinarily we live not totally, only an awakened one lives totally. Do you clean your place when you get up in the morning? Do you make up your bed when you get up in the morning? Do you keep your restroom neat and tidy? Do you keep all the places where you go Even the vehicle that I travel, I use, has to get a shower. It cannot take shower on its own. So I have to give it a shower, clean inside, outside. So this is how it happens. You know only the room where you live. I use because the other room which is occupied by someone else, you do not want to disturb that person and you do not clean. But at times the house belongs to me. I am responsible for its cleanliness. When I see certain portions where others are living, a guest or someone else, I clean that place as well. So all the upper centers in an ordinary individual remain untouched and dormant. So deep breathing is going to hammer and activate them. And the question, the other, when we use the mind, the other technique, who am I, does the same thing. This is another technique to awaken the dormant energy. Raman Maharishi used this technique. He used to say that all you need to do is ask this question, who am I? A Western philosopher decided to ask this question. As he asked this question, and he went into the deeper layers and he found darkness, and he came out of that it is not possible for me to go into those dark channels. Whenever there was an incident, an individual came and he keep on asking the question he asked, Raman said, all you need to do, go within. Again, the disciple asked, he said, all you do is go within. He continued. Raman got angry. He took his walking stick and chased the man out of the compound. The disciples were baffled how Raman could get angry. But there is a difference in the anger of an awakened one, and his anger is to correct the person. Sometimes you see the anger of the mother is to correct the child, and behind the anger there is compassion. The anger, when it emerges out of compassion for the erring child, it is not to harm you, it is to correct you. The anger of an awakened one is like the anger of the mother towards the erring child. It is born out of compassion. Can you imagine anger born out of compassion? Something new phrase that you would have heard. So he returned, laughing back to his room. They question, who am I? It hammers the center from another direction. Kundalini begins from downward to upward. It is ascending. And who am I? It is descending. So try to understand it. And as you understand the function of deep breathing, now you chant, you ask, who am I? To work on Kundalini. You do not know when to close your eyes, to make a mental picture of a woman or a man in the nude. The moment you do it, sex center is immediately stimulated. You are imagining, and still yet your sex center is aroused. Why does it happen so? In fact, every center has its own imagination. And if you imagine something appropriately, something approximating it, the center concerned will be stimulated instantaneously. You close your eyes and imagine a naked woman or a man, sex center is aroused. So no sooner you think and imagine sex, your sex center starts working and you are sexually aroused. I have worked with so many people, male and female, who were married or had sex relation, but the energy could not move beyond the sex centers. Having sex or masturbation does not mean you have understood the movement of this energy. And you will be surprised to know that in this matter, a real nude woman or a man may not be as exciting and as effective as the thought of nudeness. The reason is that the thought of nakedness will take you into your imagination, and this imagination will start hitting the sex center immediately and powerfully. But when there is really a nude person in front of you, it cannot take your imagination because the person is directly in front of you nude. So immediate and close. So this will affect you only to a certain extent, and immediate as an immediate object can, while the real woman hits you differently. And when you imagine a nude person, it hits you from within. When a nude person is in front of you, it does not hit you within. Therefore, there are many men who prove impotent before a real woman, but who are very potent in their imagination. There is no end to the imaginary potency of an individual, because the assault of imagination touches your center from within. When you imagine, this process is happening within you and starts hammering your center from within. While the frontal attack of a real woman or a real man who is standing in front of you nude cannot touch you from within. It only touches you directly from without, from outside. And because man lives in mind, so he cannot work on these centers more effectively through the mind. So when you ask the question, who am I? You are just making an inquiry. You are mentally asking a question. Which center is this that this question is going to touch? It is bound to touch the center where you have asked the question. When you inquire who you are, when you are full with this thirst to know, when your inner fiber asks, who am I? Then you are going within, not otherwise. And surely some center within you is going to be hit and gets activated by it. But because who am I is a question that you have never asked, it is not going to strike any of your known and active centers. This is the question you have never asked before. This is an inquiry you have never made. You have never been filled with the thirst to know who you are. You have often asked, who is he? Who is she? Questions like these are natural, but you have never asked a question, who am I? Who am I has been an unasked question for so long. And therefore it is going to strike an entirely unknown center. Whereas breathing hits the center which is most active in you. That's the difference between the two processes. Deep breathing hammers the center which is most active in you. And when you ask the question, who am I? The most unasked question. It is going to strike an entirely unknown center which has never been touched. And that unknown center which this question is going to hit is very basic, because this question itself very basic. Who am I is the most fundamental question, a very existential one. It is a question which involves the totality of your existence. It is totality of our existence in all its depth and heights. This question will take you where you were born, before you were born. It will take you behind all the past lives. It will take you to your primal beginning. The profoundness of this question is infinite, and so is its journey equally profound. Therefore, this question will immediately strike the basic center, the deepest one, the Kundalini. Deep breathing strikes the center physiologically, and the question, who am I, strikes the center mentally or psychologically. This question hammers the Kundalini from the mind energy, and deep breathing hammers with the body energy. And if both hammer and strike, both hammer simultaneously, a stroke will be strong enough. Ordinarily, there are only two ways of hammering the center, one through the breathing, the other through the question, asking the question, who am I? There are other ways which I am not mentioning. Another person can also be helpful in this matter. And if you do it in the presence of an awakened one, the effect will be far greater, because then there will be hammering from a third direction as well, of which you have no idea. And that is astral direction, whose hammering is subtler than the physical and the mental one, doing in front of an awakened one. The astral way also comes in. When you breathe intensely, it hammers the center physically. When you ask the question, who am I? It does the same thing mentally. And when you do it in presence of an awakened one, presence of the awakened one, the astral body is hammered. Then a third journey begins. So if 50 people meditate together, it will be far more intense than if one person meditated, because of the longing of 50 persons combined together with the vibration of the intense breathing. An astral atmosphere will pervade in the room, and a new kind of electrical light waves will begin to circulate within that space, which will hit you from another direction, the astral direction. So that's why when you are doing these meditations as a group, it helps more. But normally we have only two directions, the physical and the other is mental. Who am I? It will hit you harder than the deep breathing, but we start with breathing because it is of the body, it is easy to do, and asking the question is somewhat more difficult as it is of the mind. And you begin with the body, and when body begins to vibrate fully, it prepares the mind to ask the question, who am I? A right situation is needed for this asking, and it won't be good to ask offhand, who am I? Anytime and every time. In fact, every question needs a right situation when it can be asked, not otherwise. For example, when your whole body begins to shake and tremble, a question arises automatically and you ask yourself, what is it all about? How is this happening? Then you know that you are not doing anything. You are neither raising your feet, not turning your head and dancing, and yet dancing is happening. And if all this happens without effort, your identity with your body will begin to loosen. Then a new question arises before you. You want to know who you are. The new question is that if the body is not doing it, then who else does it? And who are you? Now, a gap is created between you and your body. This is the right situation when through the gap, the question, who am I, can sink deep into you. It is precisely this opportunity when it becomes necessary to ask the question, really, every question has its right time to ask. And it is very important to find out the right season for this question, who am I? It is not a question to be asked in an offhand manner. It cannot be asked anytime without a due preparation. If sitting here you ask this question casually, who am I? It will be lost into the air. It will not reach anywhere. A gap, an opening in you is necessary from where the question can penetrate in you. An opening is a must. I will pause here at the moment until we meet again, because I do not want to rush in its explanation. So I will continue this in the next session. Until then, take care and do have a pleasant day.